Long ago, in the land of Israel, a great battle was about to begin. The army of Israel stood on one side of a wide valley, while the army of the Philistines stood on the other side. For many days, the two armies faced each other, waiting for someone to make the first move. The air was full of fear, tension, and silence. Every soldier knew that a terrible fight could begin at any moment. Among the Philistines, there was a giant warrior named Goliath. He was taller and stronger than any other man on the battlefield. He wore heavy bronze armor, carried a massive spear, and looked almost impossible to defeat. Every morning and every evening, Goliath walked into the middle of the valley and shouted to the army of Israel, "Choose one man to fight me. If he defeats me, we will serve you. But if I defeat him, you will serve us." When the soldiers of Israel heard his voice, they were terrified. No one dared to step forward. Even the bravest men looked at Goliath and felt their courage disappear. For 40 days, Goliath continued to challenge them, and for 40 days, no one answered. Far away from the battlefield, in a quiet town called Bethlehem, there lived a young shepherd named David. David was not a soldier. He did not wear armor, and he did not carry a sword. He spent his days taking care of his father's sheep on the hills. He guided them to green pastures, protected them from danger, and trusted God with all his heart. David may have looked young and ordinary, but he was brave. When lions or bears came to attack the sheep, David did not run away. He protected the flock and trusted that God would help him. His courage did not come from his size or strength. It came from his faith. One day, David's father, Jesse, called him and said, "David, your brothers are with the army. Take this food to them and see how they are doing." So David woke up early the next morning. He left the sheep with another shepherd, took bread and food for his brothers, and traveled toward the battlefield. When he arrived at the camp, he saw the Israelite soldiers preparing for battle. He heard the sounds of shields, armor, and marching feet. Then, suddenly, Goliath stepped forward once again. The giant stood in the middle of the valley and shouted his challenge to the army of Israel. The soldiers stepped back in fear, just as they had done many times before. But David listened carefully. He was shocked that this giant was not only challenging the army, but also insulting the people of God. David turned to the soldiers around him and asked, "Who is this man who dares to challenge the army of the living God?" Some people were surprised by David's words. Others did not take him seriously. Even his oldest brother became angry and asked why he had come to the battlefield. But David did not turn away. He knew this was not about pride or showing off. It was about faith, courage, and trusting God when everyone else was afraid. Soon, David's words reached King Saul. The king called David to his tent. When David stood before Saul, the king looked at him with surprise. David was young, simple, and dressed like a shepherd, not like a warrior. But David spoke with confidence. "Do not let anyone lose heart because of this Philistine," David said. "I will go and fight him." King Saul was shocked. "You cannot fight Goliath," he said. "You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior since his youth." But David answered, "When I was watching my father's sheep, a lion and a bear came and took sheep from the flock. I went after them and rescued the sheep. The Lord who saved me from the lion and the bear will save me from this Philistine." King Saul listened to David and understood that his courage came from his faith in God. Finally, Saul said, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." Then Saul gave David his own armor. They placed a helmet on David's head, heavy armor on his body, and a sword in his hand. But David was not used to them. He tried to walk, but the armor was too heavy. The sword felt strange to him. "I cannot go with these," David said, "because I am not used to them." So David took off the armor. Instead, he picked up his shepherd's staff, went to a nearby stream, and chose 5 smooth stones. He placed the stones inside his small shepherd's bag and took his sling in his hand. Then, David walked into the valley. The soldiers watched in silence. On one side stood Goliath, the giant warrior with armor, spear, and shield. On the other side stood David, a young shepherd with only a sling and 5 stones. When Goliath saw David coming toward him, he laughed. He looked at David and said, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" Goliath mocked David because he thought David was too young, too small, and too weak to fight him.
Dog that you
But
come
David
at me
was not
with
afraid.
sticks?
He looked at Goliath and said, "You come against me with sword, spear,
I come
and
to you
shield,
in the name of the Lord,
but I come against you
not
in
with
the name
a
of the
sword or a
Lord."
spear.
The valley became quiet. David continued, "Today the Lord will give you into my hands, and all the world will know that there is a God in Israel." Goliath became angry and began walking toward David. His heavy steps shook the ground, and his armor clanged as he moved closer, but David did not run away. Instead, he ran toward Goliath. As David ran, he reached into his bag and took out one smooth stone. He placed it in his sling and began to swing it above his head. The sling moved faster and faster. Then David released the stone. The stone flew through the air and struck Goliath on the forehead. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the giant warrior stumbled and fell face down to the ground. The Israelites stared in amazement. The Philistines could not believe what they had seen. David had defeated Goliath, not with a sword, not with heavy armor, and not with great physical strength. He had defeated him with faith, courage, and trust in God. When the Philistine army saw that their strongest warrior had fallen, they became afraid and ran away. The army of Israel was filled with courage and hope. The fear that had held them back disappeared. David became known as a hero that day. But David did not win because he was the biggest or the strongest. He won because he trusted God when everyone else was afraid. The story of David and Goliath teaches us an important lesson. Sometimes in life, we face problems that seem too big for us. They may look like giants standing in our way. Fear, doubt, failure, and impossible challenges can make us feel small. But courage does not mean we are never afraid. Courage means trusting God and doing what is right, even when the challenge seems greater than we are. David was only a young shepherd, but his faith was stronger than fear. And on that day, in a valley between 2 armies, everyone learned that even the smallest person can overcome the greatest giant when their heart is full of courage and faith.